Hello YouTube, Stillborn86 here with I guess a general Linux video. I am going to be using Arch, as you can see here, to work through everything for this video. But these commands and these tools that I'm about to show you are actually going to be very general in terms of Linux. So it's going to work with a lot of different distros and a lot of different systems, and in my mind it's going to actually start working with every distro and system in the near future and for a long time after that. And what I mean is Arch runs something called systemd. If I can type it correctly. There we go, systemd. Right now currently we're on version 227, and you know it gets updated rather frequently. A lot of things have rolled into systemd, and I actually need to make a video about systemd and what it does, and you know the controversy behind it. But that's a video for another day. Systemd is quickly kind of taking over the Linux world. It's, you know, if you run any version of GNOME, you have systemd. If you're running Arch, you have systemd. I believe Ubuntu is running systemd, and I think Linux Mint is as well. You know, most of your distros are going to have some version of systemd. Everybody is moving away from the init files, and you know, again, I'll get into that, you know, with the systemd video. But the point of that is, you know, these tools are actually going to be using systemd for the most part. Some of them are just going to be generic Linux stuff, Linux tools, but a lot of these things I'm going to talk about are going to be part of systemd. So it is going to work with Arch, but it's also going to work with other distros. That's that. The reason for this video, I got a PM this morning. I guess last night. I woke up to a PM this morning. Gentleman was asking me a bunch of questions, a whole lot of good questions, and I started typing it out, and after about 30 minutes of typing I realized that it would be better to show him as opposed to, you know, type out a response, because it's really hard to get, you know, things across in text instead of showing you. Also, the questions that he had been that he asked have been asked before numerous times by numerous users, and I've just repeatedly answered them. I think it would be easier just to make a video to kind of throw out there for all users, and I'll just refer them to this video, and they can, you know, pick up, you know, whatever parts they want. And on that note, I will in the description put links to different timestamps to this video to jump to, you know, different sections, because this video is going to be long and drawn out and winded, just like this intro has been. So, you know, you can do that, or you can watch the whole video, and I recommend watching the whole video because I think there's going to be some interesting and good and useful stuff here. That being said, let's jump into this. First things first. One of the most commented and one of the most messaged things and questioned things about my Arch installs is going to be this installs, this login screen. A lot of people want a traditional login manager, you know, a GUI, you know, username and password, and, you know, logs you in. They don't want to go into this what's called a command terminal, and, you know, log in this way. I'm not sure why, because it poses the same: type in your username and type in your password. The only difference is with the login manager you get stars instead of, you know, nothingness for your password. There we go. But you know, some I don't know. I don't know. That's what that some people just don't want to do this. Personally, for security, I did this on purpose and I left it here, because it is this most simplistic way to get the most secure excuse me, startup you can. And what I mean is, back here where it's asking for a username and password, Arch has not read any files. It's booted from Grub and it started systemd. but it hasn't read anything. Here you can see a little fortune. It's read the fortune package. There's something running. Here you can see Bender. My calce package is running. It's running calce. It's reading different things. Some people want to start directly into a GUI, so that means that this automatically has to, start X, which means your Xorg stuff is already running. So not only are you automatically, when you boot up your machine, logging in and running packages, but you're also starting your GUI. And I don't know. To me, if you leave it the way it is, it prompts you for a username and it prompts you for a password, and it doesn't unlock any of your files until you do that. Okay, if you bypass that and automatically make it go into your GUI, now you have access to all of these files down here. Your AUR, your bash history, your bash profile, bash RC. You've got your config files. You've got your desktop folder. All this stuff is available to be seen. Maybe not edited or maybe not executed, but they can see it. And I don't know. It was really simple to leave all of you users, all of you new users at that login screen, and it kills two birds with one stone. A, it does the same thing a login manager would do, and B, it disables anybody from getting into your files. Now, yes, people can still get in your files if they have the know-how, but it's just one more thing to make it more difficult. And human nature, if something's more difficult, less people will do it. So if it's more difficult to get into your files, less people will do that. And that it's less work to be more secure to me. That being said, I can alleviate some of the pressure. Instead of logging in and having to type in startx, we can solve this very simply. As you can see here above my mouse, you have three files. You have bash logout, bash profile, and bash rc. Now we've played with the bash rc before. This right here is your run command. Excuse me, and it's just a bunch of line of code. Tells the system what to do interactively. Here I have the fortune piped into calce, and it uses the Bender format, and it aliases a couple commands out. So that's what that does. Bash RC runs every single time you start a terminal. If you use a command terminal, or if you use like a terminal emulator like this, it will start your Bash RC. Okay, so if I source my bash RC, it will run. There's my Bender and my fortune and all my other stuff. Bash RC runs every single time you start a terminal. So let's actually start a new terminal here. Bash RC. Okay, and that's your run command. Every time bash runs, it runs those commands. Okay, and let's kind of skip bash profile for a second. Bash logout does exactly what it sounds like. Okay, every time you log out of bash, it will run those commands. Right now it should be empty. Yeah, there's nothing to it. But what you can do is you can have it remove your history. So you have a history that's stored in your bash right here. All these are the commands that we've run before. Your bash history. You can have your bash logout. Clear your history. You can have it. Turn off your Wi-Fi. You can have it do anything you really anything you want it to, and then that runs every single time you log out of a bash terminal. So if we log out of this command window here, it'll do it. If we close this window, it'll run bash logout. It runs bash logout every time you log out of a terminal. Excuse me. I need to drink some water. My throat's getting a little scratchy. Now for that middle one, bash profile. Bash profile is really interesting because it only runs when you log into a command terminal. And what I mean by that is this window we're in when you first start up Arch is a command terminal. If you press Control Alt F2 or F3 or F4, it will take you to TTY2, TTY3, TTY4. You have 1 through 6, I think. F1 through F6. it automatically starts on TTY1, so Control Alt F1 to take you back to your main window. But every time you log into one of those, it runs bash profile. But when you open up like a terminal emulator, it will not run bash profile. So let's actually play around with that. Let's say vim.bash profile. And you see here, this is just your non-interactive shell here. And these octothorpes are commenting things out. So let's add a startx command. So this means that when I start a command line interface, the CLI terminal, it will run that. Let's X to write, and let's exit. So now when I, log in, it will run my bash RC, and then it will run startx instantly. Okay? And I believe I have GNOME running now, because I was tinkering with that now that GNOME just updated. And I still don't like GNOME. I'll make a video on that. Let's let this load here. So there's GNOME. So you see, I didn't have to type startx when I logged in. It automatically did it for me. I can come down here to Activities, pull up a terminal emulator. There's Terminator. And this should only run my bash RC. As you can see, it doesn't run startx again. It only runs bash RC. Okay? So your bash RC runs every time a terminal opens. Bash profile only runs when you start a command line interface, which looks like where is it here? I don't know what the key combination is for this, but for an actual machine it would be Control Alt F1, Control Alt F2. No, that's not what I'm looking for here. I don't know what the key combinations are for this. But yeah, every time you log into a command terminal. Let's actually log out of here. How do I log off? Log out. There it is. See that? I really hate GNOME, but that's another video for another time. And then, if I exit and then log back in, it'll automatically run startx again. And that to me, that sounds like what everybody's having a problem with. If you ever want to turn that off, you can come back down here to your terminal emulator. Vim.bash profile, and then come down here and delete the line. Save, exit, log out, exit. Now if you log in, now it just gives you a command line interface. Personally, I enjoy this better. It gives you more options, and you can always add that startx to your bash profile. But to me, I do a lot of things through terminal. I use the DD function all the time. I'll ping certain things to make sure I'm online. There's a lot of things in the terminal that I use, and it's faster to boot up here than to let startx run and try to start different modules, and then I gotta wait. And if I just want to ping something, I can just log in and I'm done. But if that's what you're looking for, if you want to automatically start into the GUI, that's how you do it. But I would not get rid of that of this login manager here. I would keep that, and I would make sure that's just, you don't need another login manager if you use that. But that's just me. And that's how you startx from boot. The next thing I would suggest for security wise is to use a module called fail to ban. Let's see if we can find it here. Fail to ban. Fail to ban is a very interesting package. It essentially stops brute force attacks. And what I mean by that is you can ping, let's go here and ping, let's say we want to ping 8.8.8.8. Now that's actually Google, but you can see here that it's responding. I sent 64 bytes. I got 64 bytes back within 37 milliseconds, and then I got another 64 bytes within 35 milliseconds. I had 0% packet loss. There's something on the other end of 8.8.8.8. Now, that seems pretty, uninteresting for most people. But let's say, you and I are on the same network. If I start pinging IPs on that network, 192.1, I could, ping -c, I can ping 3 times, 192.168.0.1. I'm getting something on point 1, and then I can do it with point 2. I'm getting something on point 2. Nope, there's nothing on point 2. I had 100% packet loss. So there's nothing here, but there's something here. So that means, depending on what that is, if I wanted to brute force it, let's say that this is a Linux machine. I could, SSH root at 192.168.0.1, and if there is something there, see, it won't let me there. I'm not sure what point 1 is, but if it was a Linux machine, there would be a root user, and it would prompt me for the root user's password. And I could just, try to brute force my way into that root user password. Now, the thing is, Linux will let you try an infinite number of times to log in. Failed to ban actually records who tries to log in, how often they try to log in, and how rapidly that is. And you can configure it to whatever you want. You can configure it to 3 tries within 60 minutes. You can have it configured to 1 try within a day. You can configure it to whatever you want. And the idea is, let's say you have it configured to 3 tries in 60 minutes. If I try to log in as root 3 times in an hour, and I fail 3 times, it will log me out, and it won't let me try anymore. So even though I have an IP and I have the root user's name, root, it won't even prompt me for a password. It'll just kick me. It'll give me this connection refused, because fail to ban has recognized that I'm trying to brute force into root, and it won't let me. And you can configure it to stop me for the next hour. You can configure it to stop me from trying again in the next day or the next week, or you can even configure it to stop me forever until the admin logs into that machine and takes me out of the blocked IP list. There's a number of things. It's not perfect, but it's something. It's better than nothing, and it's usually what I recommend to new users, to at least have this. You should also have some sort of antivirus. I like Sophos, but you can use whatever you want. To me, Sophos is a very good Unix antivirus, and there's paid versions and there's free versions. Here's the free tools. If you're from the US, here's the link, the current link. You can just do a Google search like I did for Sophos antivirus free download. I think it's the 4th option here. And you get free tools. There's for Mac, here's virus removal tool, Home Edition. Here's a firewall that you can set up. That's essentially what failed to ban is a type of firewall. And then here's your antivirus for Linux. Linux, I can make a video on how to install this if you want. It's not very difficult. It's a little nebulous, there's some documentation you should read, but it's not too difficult. But I do recommend to have some sort of antivirus, some sort of firewall, set up some sort of fail to ban. There are a number of ways to set up your firewall. The Arch has all kinds of documentation for all kinds of different options. You should have these things on a secure system. Now again, you don't want to run too much security, because you'll lock yourself out. You want to find a finesse, find something that works for you. But fail to ban, I always try to suggest to everybody. It stops at least the brute force attacks, and that's better than nothing. It's better than a sharp stick in the eye. After that, I get a lot of questions. The next group of questions I get are networking questions. Now, networking for Arch and for systemd is kind of nebulous. It's kind of confusing, and so we'll run through it. I set up the Ethernet connection because it's already set up. I think it's this one. No, video. I can't remember which one it is. This one, network interfaces. VirtualBox automatically picks up an Ethernet connection, but I didn't really go over wired connections. So we'll set up some wireless connections here, just for you, because this is an often requested function. So because we're running systemd, all of your networking is run through something called netctl. You can install Network Manager, you can do multiple different things, but netctl is already part of your Arch Linux distro. You don't have to install anything else. It's part of the base group that you had to install to get, Arch running. It's so this is the base group that you installed. netctl is right there. Profile-based systemd network management. It manages your networks. Wired, wireless, WPA, WEP, static IPs, dynamic IPs, DHCPC, everything. And there's really, for wireless, for any networks, there's really two ways to go about it. There's automatic switching and there's manual switching. So for either one, let's start at the beginning. Let's create a profile. You have a number of templates for netctls already stored on your machine. And those can be found in etc netctl examples, and those are all right here. You see, you have Ethernet static. Actually, let me. I can actually point better here. So you have bridging, you have your custom Ethernet, you have a dynamic IP Ethernet, static IP Ethernet, you have open vSwitch, you have tunneling, you have open wireless, WEP wireless, WPA wireless, you have WPA with static IPs, VLAN dynamic IP, VLAN static IP. You have all kinds of different options here. You can add more, you can take away some. These are all just examples, and they're all just they're all kind of flat. So let's look at one. Let's look at the WPA, because that's what most people use. So here you have a description of what it is: a simple WPA encrypted wireless encryption. It points to your interface. It tells you it's a wireless connection. Tells you what kind of security. You're going to get a dynamic IP out of it. You're going to have an ESSID, which is your network name, some commented outlines, your key, which is your network password, some more commented lines. This one right here you can actually tailor. It tells you here, uncomment this if your SSID is hidden. So if you have a hidden name, you're going to uncomment, take away that octothorpe, and then set priority for automatic profile selection. And we'll get to that here in a moment. So these are all template profiles already tailored to everybody. So let's say that your home network has a WPA system and a network set up. So let's just pull the WPA. So we're gonna have to sudo, because we're in the etc folder. That's how that works. We want to copy the wireless WPA, and we want to copy it instead of in this examples folder, because since we're here in examples, we want to copy it to the netctl folder. We'll use double dots and a slash to take us back one folder, and let's call this home network. Let's actually call it home network A. Okay, so it's going to ask us for a password, and so if we look at this, home network A is not in our examples folder. You can see here that we're still in examples and it's not here. If we cd back one folder, we're in netctl, right here, netctl and examples. We've gone back a folder, and if we look, it's here, home network A. Okay, So now the problem with this, okay, since we're on the topic of security, home network A is a plain text file. We can less home network A and it will tell us all the information that's in it. Okay? Yeah, that's nice, but we don't want just anybody to be able to look at it. So what we want to do is we want to run sudo again, chmod for change mode, and we're going to do 0700. And what this means, 7 means there are 7 binary bits for the root user, because it's root, group, and user. Or yeah, I think it's root, group, or user. And 7 means there's 7 binary bits. They can do everything. They can read, they can write, and they can execute. There are 0 binary bits for the group. So people in the group can't do anything. They can't read, they can't write, they can't execute, nothing. And then 0 for the user, same thing. They can't read, write, or execute. And we're going to do this to home network A. Okay, so now what we've done here is if we less, that's actually just up arrow, if we less home network A, permission denied. We can't see what's in it because we're not root. Okay, only root, because of that 7 in that place, can view what's in that folder, what's in that file. So let's go in here and sudo to become root, and we're going to go ahead and edit home network A. Now we can see what's in it. It actually populates. If we didn't use sudo, it would just be a blank folder. Let's let me show you an example of that. If we just vim home network A, it's blank and it tells you down here permission denied, because we changed the mode, we changed the who can view it, who can and can't do that. So we have to use sudo, and now we can see what's in here. Okay, now we can edit and change things. First, we're going to want our network interface. So if you run IPA, it's going to tell you here's your LO. We're not worried about that. ENP is going to, anything with an E is going to be your Ethernet. Okay, and then anything with a W is going to be your Wi-Fi or your wireless. I don't have a wireless connected here, but let's pretend that we do. Let's call it ENP. We'll call it WLP2S3. Most people's pop up that way. That's your generic wireless card. We'll do that. Okay, so you'll where's my, there it is. You'll have 1, you'll have 2, and then you'll have 3 for WLP whatever. Okay, so we'll come in here and we'll edit our home network. We have a description, so let's actually edit this description. No, let's undo that. What am I doing? Just hitting keys now. There we go. So let's insert here. Let's say my home WPA connection for network A. Okay, because we named this home network A. Now your interface is automatically going to default to WLAN 0. You may or may not have a WLAN 0. Like I said, we're not going to be using WLAN 0. We're going to pretend that we have something else. It's WLP at 2S0. If that's what your IPA said, then that's what you put down. If it's not, you put down whatever IPA said. You have to change your interface so it points to that wireless card. If you don't, then this is not going to work. Your connection, wireless, we're going to leave that. We're going to leave security there. We're going to pick up a dynamic IP address, so we're going to leave that. ESS ID is my network. This is not the name of your network, and you are going to have to make this specific to your network. So we're going to let's call it the network's name is A, so we're going to type A. You type in whatever you want. It is case sensitive. Be careful about that. So, network A. These are commented lines. We're not worried about it. Your wireless key. This is your password to log into your network. So my home password for A, and whatever it is. The one question some people may have: what happens if I have an apostrophe here within my password? You have to change these apostrophes on the outliers to quotation marks, and vice versa if you have quotation marks in your password. You can't have both in your password. I'm sorry, that's just how that works, because this has to figure out how to determine, you know, what is and isn't the password, where the beginning and end of the password is. That's what these two lines are saying. If your key starts with a quotation mark, write it as a apostrophe, yada 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 key. That's just how that works. Same with your ESSID. You can change these to, you know, apostrophes or quotation marks instead of apostrophes if you have an apostrophe in your ESSID. Hidden, if your network is hidden, if it's set to be hidden, you want to take away that octothorpe. If it's not, you want to leave it there. And then priority, if you have automatic networking, you would turn that on or off, and we'll get to that later. But right now we're going to do manual, and I'm going to show you how that works. So here we've created and tailored our home network A. So we're going to use X to write, and let's clear the space. So now when we do LA, you can see here at the very top we have home network A. Okay? Now, according to our netctl, in order to connect using the basic or the manual method, you want to run this as with an octothorpe as root start profile. So we're going to run sudo as root netctl start home network A. Okay? And it's going to give us an error because we don't have a wireless card to run that with. But for you, it should, you know, hang for a moment, and it should, you know, pick that up when it picks up. But you know, it could, because you have that wireless card. If you see an error, you can go. It tells you here to run, you know, either system ctl status netctl yada yada yada, or to run journal ctl xe. And you can see here the reason that it errored out with this line, wireless interface WLP2S0 does not exist, failed to bring the network up. It's because we don't have that card. You know, you run IPA. We don't have a WLP2S0, so it's failing, and that's fine. That's how that's going to be. If you do have one and you did type it correctly, that shouldn't happen. So that's how you basically set up a profile. And what you would do is, you know, you have home network A. You know, if you have like a dual band router that, you know, has multiple ESSIDs and broadcasts different channels, you'd set up a home network B. So we would copy, you know, home network A into home network B. Oh, we need to run that as root. And so we would have to change home network B. And we'd actually come in here and change this to B. Since the ESSID is different, we'd say B. And the key would probably be different because we're trying to be secure, right? We're not going to use the same password for both. And now, what would happen is, you know, we would, you know, netctl start home network B. And of course you have to run that as sudo. And it's going to fail because we don't have that wireless card. But that's how you would do that. You have to reiterate, you would have to make different profiles for different networks. So let's say you have a work a work wireless that you need to connect to. Let's go back to examples. Let's say it's a WEP. So now we want to, you know, sudo copy wireless WEP. We want to go, you know, we don't want it in the examples. We want it back into netctl. So ... Let's say work network. So we're going to go back. Now we have work network, and we want to, you know, be secure. Change mode 0700 work network. Now work network is green. It's only available to root. We can see this right here. You can see RWX read, write, and execute for root, and then -- for group, and then -- for user. So only, you know, the root can see that. So we're going to sudo vim work network, and, you know, we're going to come in here WLP 2S0 or whatever your interface is, and we're going to come down here into My Network. We're going to say, you know, it's, I don't know, network name, and then we're gonna come down here and we're going to, you know, work password, and then we don't need to worry about priority because we're doing everything manually. We're going to write and then netctl start work network. Oh, it needs a password because it needs to be root. And it's going to error out because we don't have WLP2S0. But yeah, that's how you would manually do things. And once the profile is created, now that I have all three profiles created, if I take this to work, I would, you know, netctl start work. And then when I leave work and come home, I would just netctl start home. And, you know, whichever one I want. And I could swap doing that. You can always, you know, netctl stop work. You know, it's still going to error out because it's, oh, it stopped it because it doesn't need a working card to stop it. But yeah, so that's how you would swap between different wireless networks manually. Now manual connecting is gonna have some benefits. It does seem really out of the way, and you do need to use it, you know, manually through the terminal to start and stop netctl, and that is kind of a pain. It's not as convenient, but it's a little bit more secure than automatic switching. And what I mean by that is automatic switching, your computer keeps your wireless card on all the time, and it looks for networks that it knows. Okay, and it kind of broadcasts ESS IDs out there, and, you know, are you home network A? No. Are you home network B? No. Are you the work network? Yes. Okay, then come in and, you know, these are my credentials. Let me log in, and, you know, yada yada yada. A good cracker will listen to your computer, find the ESS IDs that it's broadcasting, and kind of spoof that. And and in turn have your computer connect to, you know, the cracker's computer, you know, kind of reroute your traffic and follow you. So that's being manual. You're not broadcasting those ESS IDs all the time, and that's slightly more secure. It's not a whole lot. So I use automatic switching. You know, a smart cracker will use Wireshark or AirCrack and still listen to your computer, even if they're not on your network, or even if you're not broadcasting your ESS IDs. It'll still pick all that up, and it'll still, you know, a good cracker will still get all that. So to me, the convenience trumps that security just a little bit. So on that note, let's talk about automatic switching of profiles. Automatic profiles are not too much different. You are going to need two packages, or at least one package, if not two. You're going to need the if plugged or the action D. If plugged is for wired interfaces, and action D is for wireless. Now what that means is, if plugged, let's say you have an Ethernet port on your computer. If plugged watches that Ethernet port, and when something gets plugged into it, it automatically connects to that Ethernet. You know, without if plugged, what you're going to have to do is, you know, netctl start Ethernet DHCP, and that, you know, you have to run that as root, and you're going to have to, you know, it's not watching that Ethernet port. You have to automatically turn that port on, right? And I just did. But with if plugged, if you have that running, then it will automatically watch for that something being plugged in there. And so, you know, it's just sudo pacman-s ifplugd, and it's looking. It's I think Pacman just updated their mirror list, so it's probably going to error me out. Oh no, there it is. If plugged. You know, do you want to install? Sure, and it's installed. So now to start automatic switching for wired interfaces, what we're going to do is we're going to say, you know, well, we need IPA again. We need this ENP0S3. So I'm going to write that down. ENP0S3. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to run, for if plugged, we're going to run this command right here. And we're going to say sudo, because we need root access, because we're going to work with hardware level Ethernet card. Net system CTL, because we're working with system D now. Start net CTL for our network control, if plugged. Okay, net CTL is going to be using the if plug program to monitor your Ethernet card at the interface, which we just found, ENP0S3.service. And now it's going to watch that that Ethernet port automatically through through if plugged. Now the problem is, because we only use start, it's only going to work for this session. If you want if plugged to run every time you reboot or start up your computer, you're going to have to rerun this program or this command and change start to enable. Okay. Now it created a symbolic link, you know, from this place to that place, and so every time you reboot, if plugged is going to automatically run. That's, you know, that's how you automatically switch for your Ethernet. Now, some of you don't have Ethernet ports at all. Some of you only have wireless. So what you're going to need is WPA action D. So sudo pacman-s WPA action D. If I can type it. And it's going to find these packages. You know, WPA action D here. Give you total size. Do you want to proceed? Sure. Now that we have it, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to run the WPA action D command, and it's going to be a lot like this, like your if plug. So sudo system CTL start net CTL auto at, and then interface is going to be your wireless interface, and we don't have one here, so it's probably going to error out. We're still going to use the fake WLP2S0.service. And it's going to take a moment. It'll take a moment regardless, but it'll take a moment for us and actually error us out because we don't have WLP2S0. Maybe not. It's going to look forever, so I'm going to go ahead and halt that with Control C. And then, you know, if you want that to be persistent across reboots, again, you're going to want to change start to, you know, enable. And then it creates a symlink. Now, for either one, if you want to stop it from working across reboots, you just run the same command, and then you hit, you know, disable and stop. And that's all that's all written here in System D. You can look all that up here. System CTL start. Here's your octathorpe for root, so we ran sudo. System CTL start. System CTL stop. System CTL enable. System CTL disable. You know, enable a unit to be started on boot up, to not start on boot up, you know, yada yada yada. All that's there. So that's your automatic wireless setup. And again, WPA action D will automatically, you know, broadcast these SSIDs and look for, you know, known networks that it can connect to, and if it finds one, it will connect. Now, on that note, we do need to make some slight modifications to our NetCTL profiles, because we have two home networks that are going to be broadcast. So NetCTL will find two networks at the same time. Maybe our work network is so far away it's not going to find that, so we're not going to worry about that. But since we have a dual band router, we're going to be broadcasting network A and network B. So we're going to need to, you know, modify, you know, home network A and we're going to need this priority line. We're going to have to uncomment it, get rid of that octothorpe, and we're going to have to change the priority. Okay? 1 should always be your Ethernet card, because that's going to be the very top of your priority chain. Okay? And netctl talks about priorities. Load balancing, failover. Here it is. Automatic switching profiles. I was right there. It talks about giving things higher priority. Certain priority things get certain things. So 1 should always be your wired Ethernet card, because that's going to be the highest priority. It's automatically going to pick that up. Since we want home network A first, let's go ahead and give this a priority 2. Okay, we're going to write, and then we're going to edit B, and we're going to give this a priority 3. Okay, now what that means is when WPA action D finds both, oh, well, I named this incorrectly. There we go. So what this means is when WPA action D finds both A and B networks at the same time, it's going to say, okay, which one has a higher priority? Well, A is 2 and B is 3, so we're going to try to connect to A first, is what that's going to do. Now, again, we're not worried about the work, because work can only be found at work, and they're miles away or something. You're not going to pick the work network up at your home, and you're not going to pick your 2 home networks up at work. So we're not going to worry about those priorities for the work network. Does that make sense? Even though you have automatic switching, your wireless card is only going to see the one work network at when you're there. So we don't have to worry about priorities at that point. But at home we do. So what we've done is we've set up a priority for home network A and home network B. So we'll prioritize A over B. If it can't connect to A, it'll automatically go to B. And if it can connect with A, it'll stop there and it won't connect to B at all. So that's what that priority is. You don't necessarily have to have it, but it helps organize what networks you automatically connect to when you can see them at the same time. So that's your automatic networking. That's how that works. Again, manual networking, manual connecting is a little bit more secure. It's not that much more secure. Personally, I use the automatic connections because the convenience to me trumps the security. Again, even if you're using manual connections, once you've connected to a network, I could use a tool like Wireshark, and I could find who is on that network, and I can spoof a MAC address, or I can spoof the network's MAC address and interject myself as a midway point or something. And all those threats are still there, regardless if you're using manual or automatic. It's just automatic makes it a little bit easier. And to me, if somebody's going to start spoofing MAC addresses, the fact that I'm automatically connecting or manual connecting is not going to deter them at all. They already know how to do that. They're going to be able to get around my automatic or manual connection. So to me, it's more simplistic, more straightforward to automatically connect to a network, and so I do. That being said, let's move on to browsers. And I kind of don't even want to do this one. To me, browsers are a very nebulous thing. As you can see here, I do use Chromium. It's the open source version of Chrome. And yes, I know that it calls back to Google. Yes, I know it tells them everything I do and the web pages I view. Yes, I know that all happens. But in reality, Firefox does the same thing. Iceweasel is just an old version of Firefox. Opera, they use their own home server, so literally everything you do is stored on their home servers. That's why Opera is so fast. All the browsers you use are going to do the same thing. No matter what search engine you use, Bing or Google or DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo was a big thing because everybody thought they were secure and they didn't store your saves, but they do. They do. Everybody collects metadata on you. and there's really no way to stop it at this point. Personally, I use so many machines. I like my bookmarks to be saved, automatically. So if I log into my MacBook, or if I log into my Windows machine, or if I log into a Raspberry Pi, I have my bookmarks already imported automatically for me. I don't have to remember pages or save them to some repository somewhere. I automatically have them. They automatically carry over. So since everybody's going to collect metadata on me, they're all going to follow me and store my browsing history, I might as well get something out of it, and that's why I use Chromium. You can use whatever you want. Again, it doesn't really matter. To me, Chromium is a very efficient and very fast browser, so I use it. But you can use whatever you want. Just do your homework, find out what you like, find out what you don't like, and run with it. As for add-ons, I try to keep things lightweight. I have disconnect here. It shows you how much time you've saved, how much bandwidth you've saved by stopping things from following you and tracking you and yada yada yada. Disconnect I think is a really good add-on. You can research that on your own. Block to me is really nice. It's super lightweight. It works really really well, and it hasn't sold out like AdBlock Plus has. So I use it. You again do your homework. The more add-ons you use, the slower your browsing is going to be. So just remember that. I try to keep things minimized, and I use those too. I have something to send to my Chrome phone, and I have my Chromecast home network set up, so I can do that. But I really just have these two plugins going. I have removed my profile thing. That's not very difficult. For Arch, it's Chromium # disable new avatar menu, and it's that simple, and it launches a new Chromium window without the avatar. You can tinker all you want. It's up to you. That's the beauty of Linux. You can do your own thing. I hope you've learned something. I hope I haven't wasted too much of your time, and I hope this has been very educational. The main points to take away: if you're going to have multiple networks that you want to connect to, you have to have a separate profile set up. You can't just add to that profile. Like I can't go to home network A. So I can't come down here and no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So I can't create, like a profile here for home network A and then come down here and then start doing home network, B like this. This is not how you would do this, because netctl won't be able to differentiate which one is which one. This profile has two different keys in it. It's it's not going to be able to follow that. You have to make separate profiles for separate networks, and that's just what you're going to have to do. No. So we have separate home network profiles for separate home networks. We have a work network. You can set up whatever you want. Set up Ethernet. We did automatic switching. We did manual switching. Turning things on and off, and for the manual, if you wanted to manually turn on netctl start the network, but you can also stop it, netctl stop. Those booleans still work both ways, and it runs just fine. We ran through IPA to find what your wireless card and your Ethernet card are called, and we talked about fail to ban and startx and bash profile. I hope all that works for you. Again, I hope you learned something. One last note, bash profile for Linux is totally different from bash profile for Mac. Mac does not carry a bash logout or a bash RC. So these three files right here, bash logout, bash profile, and bash RC, do not exist on a Mac. They're just bash profile. So bash profile is bash RC for Mac. There is no login only and logout only bash for Mac because Mac doesn't want you tinkering around with those things, I guess. I don't know. But Linux, you do have multiple things. You can even have a bash alias if you want. And instead of putting your aliases in a bash file, you can have, its own file for just aliases. And that's, it is what it is. You can research that and find that out. But that's what bash profile means for Linux, and that's Arch Linux and Ubuntu Linux and Fedora Linux and just all the Linuxes except for BSD and Mac. So there you go. I've armed you with some knowledge. Go out there and do good with it. Still 186 out.